Mel, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Mel, hey everybody, Cantonese Catter. Talking about indices, talking about ARK fund, rates, yields, and economic calendar, all that crap. And I'm going to end with Palantir, Tesla, and Nvidia. Just real quick, so I recalibrated this Gann square here. I did it through log scale. It's going to be 1440 and 100. And I did it since the bottom of the great financial crisis. I saw that it actually is giving me some pretty incredible market symmetry here, where price just kind of went all the way up here. And we have a kind of a lost 2 years, and it was just basically bouncing into the arc down here. And then we went all the way over here, and we decided to have a correction whenever we got rejected here, the arc. We actually was able to push through the arc here in November 2023, and we went up a lot higher, right? So logically speaking, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get any volatility, but you could have some pretty crazy volatility like it did over here, like it did over here, like it did over here. But ultimately, that's more or less noise, because eventually, based on looking at this, you already had, how many corrections have you had over the last 7 years, right? One over here, another one over here. So you had 3 major corrections over the last 7 years. What's the likelihood of that happening again anytime soon? Well, actually, based on statistically speaking, it's not very high. You might still have some years where you make no gains or a little bit down, but overall, I think over the next 2, 3, 4 years, it's probably going to end up gravitating up here towards the arc up here. So you're probably talking about S&P 500 breaking another 70-80% before potentially any major correction. I don't know what's going to happen up at arc, right? I mean, we'll deal with that when it comes. But currently, it just seems like we're at a pretty good spot moving forward. QQQ also did again here based on the bottom of the great financial crisis. Now, this one I did it based on a little bit different metrics here. I did it through 1440 and 10. And you can see also gives you some pretty remarkable market symmetry, where it was bouncing off of arc, and then bouncing off of the arc here. And right now it looks like it wants to grab it up to the next arc. The next arc is actually going to be around close to double from where price is at right now. And there's a potential over the next 2, 3, 4 years it could just kind of keep on going up, just like that. Based on if this is really truly a growth asset, and this is truly a great stability in terms of what it's doing right now, after we found out that banks apparently can't fail in 2008, it just took off from there, right? It looks like it wants to take off from there. And again, this doesn't mean that you're not going to have any kind of volatility. Who knows? Maybe even go sideways. Maybe even come back test the 340s, and I doubt it. And it looks like it's more or less just want to kind of grab it up to the next level here. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be any volatility in between, but it just looks pretty good over the next 3, 4 years or so. Look at IWM. I do have a little bit of a small time frame Gann here based on this. Based on 1,440 and 0.2, gives me some pretty good market symmetry here. I really just want to look at the IWM, which is the Russell 2000, representing the small cap companies. And it's going to be more of the true risk on indicator, if you will. If IWM does extremely well, that's when you're going to have some pretty crazy things happening. And so far, what do we have here? Well, what we have is really that we got rejected here at this arc here for a very long time, and then we simply broke down underneath, went to the arc underneath, back tested for about a year and a half, and we were able to break back through from this arc over here, break back above the arc, and we were able to actually go through the arc and just simply back testing it. In addition to back testing arc, we also are back testing a very important FIB level here, which is 0.786. And once, if we're able to really truly hold the arc as well as the 0.786 here, then you're talking about things could potentially just keep pushing through. All-time high can go up to the next arc up here, or potentially beyond, right? I mean, that there's some great possibility where it can just kind of go up a lot higher, because we really have gone through a lot of consolidation here for a very long time, for like 2, 3 years. And I think IWM just looked like it's getting ready to move. It's been making mostly higher highs and higher lows. It looks like it's ready, right? And also can't really be that bearish on the market, because look at ARK Fund, look at what it did. From the all-time high here to the cycle low, you can see a log Fibonacci sequence here. You can see how it broke through the 0.382 here and is holding the 0.382 so far on a Monday, right? It did back test here a little bit, though so far is holding. looks like there's a pretty decent demand zone here. If it ends up breaking down, there's further demand down in the low 50s here. I think this area over here between here and the 0.32 is probably going to end up holding. And if it ends up holding, it bodes really well for risk-on sentiment in general, right? Because if you also look at a Bollinger Band, you can see the price wants to go up higher, but just couldn't because waiting for Bollinger Band to expand. You can see the 20-month moving average is curling up just like that. You can see that it wants to go higher, but it needs to just kind of correct. There's a potential for it to drop down a little bit further. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's necessarily just going to keep going up from here, although it could. It could do that, but I don't necessarily think that it's going to necessarily happen, right? Now, that tells me that things are getting a little bit risk on here. On top of that, I was talking about on a live stream the other day, I was doing ARK over SPY. You can see even ARK over SPY is turning bullish, right? It's flipping 20-month moving average from resistance to support. If you also look at the weekly here, if I get rid of the Bollinger Band, if I just do the Ichimoku, you can see how it really is just kind of breaking through Ichimoku and trying back testing Ichimoku here. It looks like ARK wants to potentially outperform the S&P 500 again, which is going to be pretty mind-blowing for some people to think about. We have the economic calendar here on Market Watch. Tomorrow 8:30, we have the core PPI. And then the day after that on Wednesday at 8:30, we have the core CPI. And there's going to be great market volatility based on these numbers. Now, don't get me wrong, I made a long post yesterday as well as a long, kind of like a podcasting yesterday. I was talking about these economic data. The truth is, like, if you're really truly concerned about inflation, I don't know why that would be, because if you look at the oil index, it looks weaker and weaker, right? I mean, it did end up breaking above the triangle here a little bit, but you're hitting a lot of the resistance zone. On the monthly, you're hitting the Kijun, right? On the weekly, you're hitting the weekly Ichimoku cloud. So if oil in the 2 weeks too, like, there's just so much negative stuff that is hitting, right? Again, weekly Ichimoku cloud resistance, 2 week Ichimoku cloud resistance, monthly the Tengen resistance here inside the cloud. So oil is looking weaker and weaker. It's forming lower higher compared to all this highs over here, right? So I just don't know. It doesn't really seem like it's going to be that bad. You do have the GSG, which is the Commodity Index Trust Fund. It does look like it wants to form a little bit of a high here. That does look a little bit scary, but I just don't know whether or not it's going to be scary enough, because the GSG was also a lot higher in the past, right? So I just don't know necessarily if inflation is going to be that bad. If anything, it's just been kind of going sideways here for the entire, like, 2 or 3 years, and it looks like price is stabilized, if you will. Look at the 2-year yield. It really just looks weak. I'm going to take off the log here. And I continue to say that it's underneath resistance. And it is underneath the monthly Kijun resistance here. It's also still underneath a flattening 20-month moving average. It just looks weak, like it wants just to kind of roll over downwards, right? And if it rolls downwards, I really do think if it gets rejected here, it's going to have to have bearish technical crossing on a monthly, probably going to go back to like the 3.4, 3.3 zone for the 2-year. 10 years looking stronger. 10 years looking like it wants to kind of peek his head out, bouncing from the Tengen Kijun. Looks like it wants to keep on going up higher. The only exception, the only problem is that it's been going up on bearish divergence, right? You can see how it's been going up here on bearish divergence and how well that worked out, right? Not very well. Next thing you know, you made an ABC kind of thing. Here, you're also going up here. Now this is a little bit of a higher high compared to that, but the RSI is making a lower high. So you're talking about some bearish divergence continue to build up. And the more people talk about the 10-year, the more likely I think it's going to end up just exhausting and go down. Because I remember people were talking about the 10-year here in April. I remember people were talking about 10-year here in October. People always kind of talk about the worst things at the worst time, but they're never really going to be that up to date, if you will. If things are looking good, they don't talk about it. But I just have a hard time really believing that the 10-year is going to be that great. It does look like the 20-month moving average is curling up, but long and behold, same thing here before it collapse, right? So it is hitting up a Bollinger Band here pretty soon on a monthly. We'll see, but I do see a lot of bearish divergence that is making me very skeptical that the 10-year is going to keep going higher. I keep hearing calls that 10-year is going to go to like 5, 6%, 7%. I just don't see that happening because of the bearish divergence. This rate hike cycle looks over to me based on RSI. I'm going to stick with that. All right, talk about big three stocks here. Pretty simple, actually. I'm going to first start talking about Palantir. Palantir, here I got the weekly chart here. I'm going to go back to the log because otherwise this chart just looks crazy. You can't really make sense out of it. If you look at the log, it's just way overextended in it. And if you also look at the RSI, you can see how crazy RSI has been. I'm not seeing any bearish divergence though. It's just simply cooling down of its RSI. It went all the way up to like 87 or 88. It just needed to kind of cool down. That's exactly kind of what it did over here. And when it cooled down, it didn't have to plummet all the way back down here. It just kind of going sideways here, and RSI ended up cooling down over here, right? So far, are we having a very, very similar kind of thing? Or maybe we just kind of backtesting it and we just end up going higher because there's an acceleration of like a huge parabolic phase that's happening right now. I don't really see any bearish divergence here on the weekly, man. On the 2 week, I also don't see any bearish divergence here, man. On the monthly, I also don't see any bearish divergence here, man. So you're talking about things getting overheated and things like topping. All you really base on is to just guess. All you're based on is just that it just went way too far, way too fast, and it has to come down. It doesn't. RSI can stay overbought for a very, very long time. It doesn't do anything you want it to do. So far, we're about 13 days into the month, so about like 2 weeks of trading days in the month. We do have a little bit of bearish engulfing candle, right? A lot of people are going to get scared about that, for sure. But the whole thing is the month's not over yet, right? And also on top of that, I think it had to do what it needed to do, because it was just simply way outside the upper Bollinger Band and needed to cool down. Things just don't stay outside upper Bollinger Band like this. It usually comes back down and usually touches the upper Bollinger Band before it goes higher, right? And that's exactly what it's doing right now. And we still have two weeks, well, a little bit longer into the month for us to get rid of this bearish divergence, or get rid of this bearish engulfing candle, and kind of take it from there, right? If you're also looking at a couple of things here too, last week it did have a little bit of a big volume selling, and that was a little bit scary. So we ended up having a little bit of continuation so far this week, and that's okay. I'm going to show you a couple of things here. One thing is that once I get rid of the volume, one thing is look at the GAN here. I did end up showing the GAN here, a couple of things. One is I drew the duration here 720, and the ratio so far is 10. If you see this, you're like, okay, so it got rejected where you thought it was going to get rejected at, right? Just like it for this arc here, backtest arc, it just went for the next arc, right? Just like it kind of backtest before this arc, backtest arc, and just went up to the next arc, right? Here we got rejected here. We need to find some kind of support down below. What kind of support are you going to be able to find? Well, you have a lot of support that, you know, the Tenkan wasn't able to serve as support. It ended up just kind of breaking underneath of that. That happens sometimes, even in the bull trend. Super Ichi is already kind of way underneath right there. You're going to put a support band. You're getting a little bit closer to maybe like 58 or something like that. But even before you talk about all these different supports, what other supports are there? Well, let's change it, the ratio, instead of doing 10, let's look at 5 here. Are we getting any decent market symmetry? Yes, we are. This arc here, right? This horizontal line over here, this arc over here, this arc over here. We're getting some pretty decent market symmetry, and coming back so far, getting back testing this arc over here. So there is something to be said that there's some like hidden support zone over here that seems to be pretty powerful based on the GAN arc and GAN and the GAN square in general. So maybe we're getting closer to like a little bit of support zone here. On top of that, if you also just don't look at it, if you also look at just the daily chart here, you have something here where I think price is kind of going downwards on really kind of low volume, and these downtrend over your last 3 days are all green candles. So that means that there's some buying pressure over here over the last 3 days, and the trend that is going down is on decline volume. So that does make me wonder whether or not this is a weakening downtrend, and whether or not we're going to end up potentially pick up some momentum here. This is a very, very strong bull trend, by the way. Whenever it ends up going down to the lower Bollinger Band here, it usually turns out to be fine. You do have a little bit of negative sloping 20-day moving average here, which might take a little bit longer to try to correct here before pushing up higher. So I don't expect it to necessarily just gap up like this, although it can do whatever it wants. It's Palantir. This is an extremely volatile stock. Whatever you're talking about a monthly Bollinger Band that's expanding both to the upside, and still, even though this fund's been consolidating sideways, it's still accelerating to the downside. This is a very, very powerful bull trend. I'm not going to bet against it, even though we got 2 straight weeks of really, really bad price action, right? it doesn't necessarily mean that the overall higher trend is being affected. It's not, actually. And even for, like, I can't necessarily compare Palantir to like Bitcoin because a lot of people are saying, yeah, it's a completely different asset, different liquidity, blah, 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 blah. Well, let's take a look at it. The whole point is not to say that it's the same as Bitcoin. The whole point is to say that even if it's a very, very volatile stock with very, very powerful move to upside. So over here, right, you have a candle over here that was way outside the upper Bollinger Band. Looks very toppy. You have a tweezer top over here. Next thing you know, you have like this candle. Can you imagine this candle all the way down here? It was basically like a bearish engulfing candle. Everybody's probably all scared. Next thing you know, just end up wicking down and then end up just closing about the upper Bollinger Band there, because the trend is very strong. Because the low Bollinger Band was already pulling all the way down to the negatives. So when you have something like this, I wouldn't bet against the trend on a higher time frame and the downtrend on the shorter time frame for the last 2 weeks, where Palantir went down, you know, from like 80. What did it go from? Let me see. Get rid of the Bollinger Band, probably see better. It went from like 85 or something like that, go all the way down to like 62. A lot of people are probably disheartened by this. They wish they were taking profit up there. I don't care. I'm just riding through the trend. It can do whatever it wants to do. I don't want to stress myself up to try to sell a certain level, try to buy a certain level. Definitely not in this phase of my life. Maybe I'll do that later on in life when I'm getting better at this. But, you know, even you see resistance and support level, I'm more looking at trends because I'm more interested in really riding up through the cycle. Tesla. What is Tesla doing right now? I would say this. Tesla, if I do the same again, by the way, the last Palantir again I did was 750 and 5. So here, if I do Tesla, I do 750 and 5. What do I see? I see great market symmetry ever since the bottom here around January 2023, where it's just been bouncing arc, breakthrough arc, and got rejected up to the next arc. On the candles here on the weekly, I really didn't think that this week was going to be that bad, to be honest, because I think that Tesla's just stuck in a range. Why did I say that? You have a tweezer top here and a tweezer bottom over here, and the tweezer top is at the top of the arc here. The tweezer bottom is at the bottom of the arc over here. So I just think that Tesla just kind of stuck in the sideways here, and it's just consolidating this big giant move up. Can it go down and ride down the arc down here a little bit further? Yeah. Could it wick down a little bit further? Yeah, it can do whatever it wants to do. But so far, the volume of this downtrend is declining, and I just think that we're just consolidating sideways. How long would it consolidate sideways for? Who knows? I think on average, anywhere from like 4 to 12 weeks, based on the history of Tesla, right? Even on this big giant parabolic bull trend. Here it went sideways for about 6 weeks. Here it really dipped down, went sideways for about like 3-4 months or something, right? Here it went sideways for about 4 weeks. Here it went sideways for about 12 weeks. So on average, I would say anywhere from like 4 to 12 weeks in consolidation. We're already spending, this is like the start of 5th week, and it looks like we just kind of stuck in a range. And it still looks like it's early bull cycle. Looking at the Bollinger Band expansion, it still looks like it's early bull cycle. It was way too far away from upper Bollinger Band. It just simply needed to come back down, touch it, and wick it. And we wick down to upper Bollinger Band, just like what Palantir is doing. I don't really see any major reason for it to want to go down, especially when the prices impulsively wants to go up with the Bollinger Band expansion, just like that, just like what Palantir is doing, right? Palantir is a little bit more mature bull market, so I think it's going to keep going. I see Tesla probably end up doing the same thing after it has a few more candles, kind of push up to the 500, 600 sometime in 2025. You're probably going to track the low Bollinger Band down a lot further to really show that this is a more and more powerful bull trend here. So I'm not scared about Tesla. I think if I'm scared, Tesla's not one of the stocks that I'm really truly scared about. So if you're a market participant, if you are scared about Tesla price action, you must be new, or you must not have learned anything for the last cycle. Nvidia, last stock I'm going to talk about, and then we'll end the video here in around 20 minutes. I still think that this is a third cycle compared to previous that has some very similar predictive behavior. I still don't think the Bollinger Band is sufficiently getting close enough for you to have a major correction. Kind of like over here. I still think that you've got probably another leg up, either 200s or 350s. I still think that's going to happen, but I think there's one thing that is really, and there's no guarantee that's going to happen, right? The reason why I think like maybe 350s, because it really broke through this arc here after consolidation. You might come back test the arc before going up higher. I think it's fine. But over here, you see how it broke through the arc here, just went to the horizontal here, right? I'm suspecting it might end up doing the same, going up to like 350 or so. Sometimes it can stop short of a level like it did over here. Didn't really quite touch the arc, right? But But we'll see. I mean, it's hard for me to predict the future. I just think that the next logical level is going to be up around 350, but it can stop short. The reason why you're having a hard time really pushing up, I think, is because this stock has never done what it's doing right now. Meaning that if you look at the log fibs, this is the logarithmic Fibonacci sequence. It keeps on getting rejected here at 2.272. And 2.272 is a pretty important level, especially when it comes to log fib. Why? Because even the most bullish cycle for Bitcoin, which is the 2015-2017, it really was just stopped at, even for Bitcoin, it stopped at 2.272, right? That's where it stopped at, right? So to me, I think Nvidia is entering some new territory that has never really gone before, and that's why it's having maybe a little bit harder time to break through. Previous cycle did not go that high, like from here down here. Where did it hit? Actually, I take that back. The previous cycle actually did end up. Actually, no, this is not previous cycle. This is current. This is the. This is a previous cycle. It did actually end up going to 2.618 and beyond. So there's actually a possibility where the cycle can kind of follow what the last cycle did, and actually go beyond 2.618, right? Interesting. I'm doing analysis as I'm going. So there's a possibility where it just pushed through 2.618 and get to the next gain level up here, which is around 350, right? Because if you look at the last cycle, what did it do? It kind of ended up doing the same thing, right? It pushed through the 2.618 over here and went to the next gain level. The cycle before that, I think, was the one that really didn't really make it quite up there. Actually, let me see if I can do from here to the bottom over here. What did this cycle get to? It got to 2. It didn't really quite get to 2.272. But man, the cycle before that it was able to, so who's there to say that the cycle won't do that, right? I do have to say it is time to get a little bit more cautious. I would not buy Nvidia because I do think that it's getting a little bit more overheated here. I think it's getting a little bit more towards the end of the cycle because I do think maybe another like 6 to 12 months of up, but it's going up on a little bit of exhaustion and it's probably going to have a little bit of bearish divergence here. So be a little bit careful. I'm not going to buy Nvidia here at this point just because the trend just look a little bit more exhausted, right? You have the low Bollinger Band come back already. The low Bollinger Band come back already. The low Bollinger Band coming back already. It's a little bit of a late cycle behavior. Maybe give it another 6 to 12 months, see how it plays out. But I'm not going to put any new money into it. I'm going to try to see if I can have some extra strategy when it comes to exposure to Nvidia. But it doesn't mean the stock market is over, right? Because Tesla is just starting. And actually, if you look at the rest of the stocks like Microsoft, which I won't today, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Google, things like that, they look like they could also be potentially breaking their current resistance and maybe go a lot higher. And I just show you the indexes as well. I think over time, it's going to go a lot higher, but individual stocks may not. They might have to kind of cool down here a little bit. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to this gibberish. Have a good one. Bye.